You know ID in the town all day. ID in the SEA. You know ID in the town all day. ID in the SEA.
Hello and welcome to episode 425 of the fabulous Peltoncast, sponsored by our friends at Pagliacci Pizza. I'm your co-host, Kevin Pelton.
And I'm Tristan Carson. Oh, no. And I'm Ron Burgundy.
Well, that's definitely staying in.
You
When you mess up, it stays in.
When I mess up, it stays in.
Yeah.
Kevin won't release the tapes of the first edition of this where he claims that the Seattle Sounders are from the wrong city. But okay, it stays in for me.
I mean, they do have Seattle literally in the name. I don't think it's that strange.
And I'm Tristan Carcino.
Good to know. We'll put that on notes for you in the notes for you next time. And we're coming to you in different locations. I'm in Seattle, Washington, home of the technically still in first place in the ALS Seattle Mariners.
And I'm coming to you from Renton, Washington, home of the Super Bowl 48 champion Seattle Seahawks and the surging Seattle Sounders.
5 wins in a row in MLS, or I guess that's, in MLS play for the Seattle Sounders, 2-time MLS Cup champions, as I introduced them erroneously from Seattle in the original ill-fated version of this podcast, but it's the East Side edition.
Most importantly, you did not say it was episode 425. You said it's episode 425 of the Peltoncast.
Intentionally so. In classic Peltoncast geography fashion, I've learned a lot about where the San Juan Islands actually consist of, what they actually consist of. And I didn't realize that Everett was part of the 425. I did not know that.
The 425 is as gerrymandered as the congressional district that I live in right now. It stretches everywhere. You also, on a previous edition of the Peltoncast Unheard, didn't even know that Renton was part of the 425.
I did forget that. I was getting tripped up by the various almost live jokes relating to whether Renton would be in the 425 or not. According to Wikipedia, rapper Jay Park, who was born in Edmonds, includes a reference to both area codes, both 425 and 206, in his song Bestie.
There we go. I'm a person who can also claim both area codes. And really, it is shocking to me as a person who is so 206 until I die. And thank you. The phone number that I have from literally 2005, 4?
I believe 2005.
From 2005, I will never, ever give up that 206 phone number in my entire life because I need people to know that I am from Seattle, Washington. Even this week, people were like, oh, is that... they're like, where are you from? We're driving by. And I'm like, oh, I grew up right there because coming from the airport. And they're like, oh, is that where Renton is? And I was like, first of all, I did not grow up in Renton, Washington.
Absolutely not.
I am from Boulevard motherfucking Park. I was like, yay, though I may live in Fairwood, Washington now, it is 206 forever. But I am so comfortable with the 425 now. Except for Everett.
Unfortunately.
And any of the northern parts.
But Snohomish, you're great with.
Oh, yeah.
I like when you forget your own bits. Now, sadly, the Wikipedia page for the 425 area code does not include any list of notable residents, so we can't go through that. I mean, we could just think of, I suppose, some off the top of our head, but that could get troublesome if we go too far into this.
This is unrelated. Shouts to third Pelton brother Jan for her star performance last week.
Critically acclaimed.
Jan always a star turn.
Early Peltoncast MVP later.
I saw a TikTok of Colin Cowherd, I think probably a 425.
Like growing up there?
Is he not from...
I thought Colin Cowherd grew up like in the state of Washington, but not directly in the Seattle area.
Ooh, you think he's 509? A small fishing town about 130 miles away, Grayland, Washington. Wherever the fuck that is.
He was born in Aberdeen.
360 territory. And so he was on his podcast. I think it was with Julian Edelman. And Julian Edelman was like, who are the Seahawks Mount Rushmore? And it was a truly insane list of players that he settled on. Do you want to guess who Colin Cowherd's... I mean, like, it's not truly insane, but it's more like, do you want to guess who Colin Cowherd's Mount Rushmore Seahawks were?
I mean, I'm guessing Steve Largent for sure.
Yes.
Is it not Russell Wilson?
Literally, Russell Wilson's name did not come up.
What? Okay. Look, I get it. Some people are still holding that grudge.
I'm just
Time
like,
has not
dog,
yet healed that wound.
if we're being honest with ourselves, the Seahawks have won one Super Bowl in history. Steve Largent did not win a Super Bowl.
I mean, not necessarily his fault.
I mean, it's not necessarily anybody's fault, but the quarterback of the team who wins the Super Bowl is probably on the Mount Rushmore, especially if it's not like a Trent Dilfer type situation.
Yeah,
Something.
especially when he is like a 8-time Pro Bowler with the Seahawks or that something along those lines. Walter Jones?
Walter Jones, I'm pretty sure ended up on there. He was
Okay.
not like the automatic. There were two that were automatic, like
Cortez Kennedy?
yeah, Cortez and Steve Largent.
Okay. I mean, I'm okay.
No, it's
I
not
have
like
no
these are
quibbles with
bad.
any of those choices. Bobby Wagner is the last one?
Literally, name also did not come up.
Huh.
Like, no offense to Cortez Kennedy, Bobby Wagner is the most prolific defender in Seahawks history.
I mean, Cortez did win Defensive Player of the Year. You can't hold against him the fact that his teams had Dan McGuire at quarterback.
But like, the Bobby Wagner also had such a long tenure. The
I mean,
other
he
name
needs
that
to
he
be
was,
mentioned. You're the one that brought up Marshawn Lynch before all of these people last week.
Marshawn Lynch did come up, and he seemed like he settled on Richard Sherman as the last one. Which is like, I mean, Richard Sherman had probably the most important play in Seahawks history, so I don't want to begrudge Richard Sherman, but like, he just wasn't on the team all that long, and he's a cornerback.
Yeah.
And again, like, I love Richard Sherman, but I was like, how you got here to this group of 4 players, and then Julian Edelman is like, what about Mike Holmgren because he led the team to the Super Bowl when Pete Carroll literally won a Super Bowl. It was.
Julian Edelman may have some different Pete Carroll Super Bowl
I'm
memories.
sure that he does, but like, it was just one of those things where you're like,
the other guy
okay,
who's kind of been lost to history now. I mean, that's ridiculous to say about someone who played within the last, I don't know, 7 years. I forget exactly what his last season was. Like Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas has to be ahead of Richard Sherman, right? Like Sherman might have had a higher peak, maybe, but
Sherman had the play. Earl Thomas doesn't have the signature play in an important setting.
But that's what I mean by lost to history. That like, if you look at actual value,
lost to history. That's not what this is, though. This is the Mount Rushmore. This isn't the overall player value.
Well, that's how I define Mount Rushmore. I mean, I agree that there's like some, factor for. Okay, let's go through the Pro Football Reference approximate value. So if they're doing their Mount Rushmore for the Seahawks, it's Russ, Bobby, Largent, Walt Jones. Cortez Kennedy comes in.
You give me those 4, I'm good with those 4 right there, period.
The next 4 players on the approximate value list have not come up in this conversation. So I'll see how many of those 4 you can guess.
Wait, hold on. Who did you say?
Wilson, Wagner, Largent, Jones, Kennedy are 1 through 5.
Jim Zorn or Dave Craig, maybe even.
Jim Zorn is not. He's actually down in 14th. Dave Craig is, yes, 8th.
Sean Alexander. Oh no, Sean Alexander was one of the guaranteed people. I take that back. It was, and I'm just like, dog, just like, if we're gonna begrudge Russell Wilson, but we're not gonna begrudge Sean Alexander.
I mean,
like, literally, you can't not bring up, and it's like Sean Alexander, and I bet Sean Alexander's on that list, right?
No, he's 17th.
Really?
You're aware that running backs are notably not valuable.
Well, I didn't know how much like Pro Football Reference actually factored that in.
I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks on the list. Richard Sherman is 10th, by the way. Earl Thomas is 11th.
Matt Haas.
Matt Haas is 9th.
Also led the team to a Super Bowl. Jim Zorn didn't. Doug Baldwin?
No.
Joey Galloway? Too short?
No.
I don't know.
Jacob Green and Joe Nash are the other two in the top 10.
Both retired numbers also.
Joe Nash played 15 seasons.
At least not retired numbers, but like Seahawks Hall of Fame or whatever they call it.
Ring of Honor. Yes.
Yeah.
Jeff Bryant is also quite high from that 80s period. And then the guy who is really forgotten to history, but I mean, Dave Brown, you could also say. But the guy who's
Also part of the Ring of Honor.
yeah, he's 15th. Eugene Robinson, 13th. You never
Oh,
hear
yeah.
about Eugene Robinson anymore. KJ Wright's 18th. Tyler Lockett's 16th among the guys we haven't mentioned. Kenny Easley, 19th. Ryan Blades, 20th.
Anyway, I just thought it was a funny thing where I'm like, I do think the like Mount Rushmore conversation has to do with basically like age is such a huge factor.
Oh,
And
yeah.
for most of us, Jane was live when the Sonics won the championship, but like the Sonics championship, like Kemp and Peyton being in the 90s, even though they didn't win a championship, the magnitude for us is so much more significant because we saw them play. And so it's really difficult to like have a player from before your lifetime. You have to be a player from before our lifetimes, you have to be so incredibly good that you've become part of lore.
And I do think should be some degree of timeline adjustment that we are not seeing in the Pro Football Reference approximate value. Like being a valuable player in the 80s just wasn't as meaningful or important as being a valuable player in the 2010s because quality of play is much higher.
I don't know if that makes sense, but yes.
You don't agree the quality of play in the NFL is much higher?
Yeah, teams still needed to win the games though. Like
Yeah, but that's what a timeline adjustment is. I don't know what to tell you.
but I do
That's
feel
how
like
it works.
but if you were doing that, you could pretty much constantly say like you could probably retroactively go back and be like, Walt Jones might not be a good offensive lineman now, or something
I
like
do
that.
not think you could go back and say that. No.
Because people evolve physically so much, or even baseball players. There's a stat about baseball, whereas like 95-mile-an-hour plus pitches, there have already been more in the first half of the season than there was in like a few decades ago, the entire year or whatever. And it's just like you could be like, well, Ken Griffey Jr. couldn't hit 100-mile-an-hour pitch or whatever, like
I think you're going too extreme. I'm not saying that they were going against plumbers and firemen. I'm saying that you should apply some discount.
it's still the 80s. You know what I mean? You're not talking about like 19 like Leatherheads football.
I mean, they didn't know that the forward pass existed then.
In a lot of ways, it was more difficult because of how physically demanding it was to play defense as well. So having any sort of like longevity when you're doing that with the illegal hits that were happening and the way that hits could happen, like those players.
I suppose, but going back to your point, the fact that players were so much smaller meant that the hits, although more violent, there probably wasn't the same degree of, repeated hitting effect that we see now.
But going back to
Which is
your
why all of
point,
these guys had a lot longer careers than the modern players, many of whom had their careers end prematurely due to injury.
yeah,
Including down in, wait, where was he on the list? 36th on the list, Cam
Cam
Chancellor.
Yeah. That's our Seahawks talk for the day. Do we have other updates on the Seahawks?
We have a few updates this week.
Okay.
I had a Lofa Tutupu conversation the other day at NBA Summer League
Really?
with a friend of the pod, David Locke, who talked about watching tape of Lofa Tutupu, and with
We are getting
then
closer
Seahawks
to
GM
football.
Tim Russell.
We're getting closer.
We are getting very close to football. There's just not a lot actually going on yet. All right. Well, let's get into our toasts this week, of which we have several, starting with a congratulations to Andres Munoz, who was selected for the AL team for Tuesday's All-Star game as a replacement. The AL won that game 5-3, but neither Munoz nor Logan Gilbert made an appearance.
The attendance at the event was beautiful, though, for the Mariners.
I agree it was. Congrats, of course, to former Mariner Teoscar Hernandez, who won the home run derby on Monday night. And no, that wasn't frustrating. Not even a little bit. Not at all.
It was the support he got in the lineup. It was just the bullpen pitchers were of the oh my god, what is it called? The batting practice pitchers must have been really terrified of Shohei coming later, so they threw him meatballs during the home run derby.
It was the batter's eye. It was so much better. Congrats to the Reigns duo of Jordan Heidema and Quinn, who were named to the Canada roster for the Olympics after helping lead Canada to the gold in Tokyo in 2021. Congrats to UW shortstop Cam Clayton, the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. He was the lone Husky drafted in this week's MLB draft in the 14th round by the Miami Marlins.
There we go. I saw a post about this from the Mariners.
They
Or
posted
from
about it?
from the freaking guy. I'm really off. What the hell? Yeah, I saw a post about this from the Huskies, and
Yes.
I was like, Luca, look, if you're the best player on the Washington Huskies, you too could be drafted in the 14th round.
If you're lucky.
There was like the third best player in Washington State who's committed to the Beavers was like a 15th round draft. I assume he's going to college, but he was like a 15th round draft pick. And I'm like, so to be the third best player in Washington State translates to pick like number 520 or something. And I was just like, times are bleak out there. Times are bleak.
Yeah, I mean, Washington is not noted for its baseball prospects. I would also note that with high school players in particular, signability plays a key role. So
No, I'm sure
if everyone
that
thinks you're
they
going to
expect
college,
him to go to Oregon State.
go to where?
Oregon State, we're fine with them.
Okay. Congrats to Sue Bird.
In
on
fact,
getting her
I
own-
heard in Overboard the movie there was a lot of Oregon State merchandise.
Really?
I guess Big Beavs country
Ah.
takes place on the Oregon coast because that's the thing I know about the movie Overboard starring Kurt Russell.
Is it like Cannon Beach territory, or is it like? Okay. All right. Well,
It's a big coast.
We'll continue
coast
doing
of Oregon.
research on the subject. Congrats to Sue Bird on getting her own Barbie.
There
It
we
was
go.
unveiled on Tuesday. I got to be honest, I find it a little creepy looking. Have you seen this?
No,
Okay.
I think
Well.
just the fact of having your own Barbie is like the important thing, whether it's creepy looking or not.
Oh, of course. And being able to say,
This isn't creepy looking.
okay.
Let me do some further research. Just like me and Overboard starring Kurt Russell and the location. I have determined I do not find this to be creepy. However, I've also determined what exactly makes it a Barbie.
The fact that it's produced by Barbie. But this is an interesting note because Rebecca Lobo, there was a Barbie themed after her during the early days of the WNBA, but that Barbie did not look at all like Rebecca Lobo. It just looked like, I believe it's classic or stereotypical Barbie. I forget what they refer to her as in Barbie the movie. But this one is super looking to a point. Overboard is set in the fictional seaside town of Elk Cove, Oregon.
Okay.
So there you
So
go.
we will not take a trip there.
No. Apparently there is an Elk Cove, but it is not on the seaside.
It's like the Goonies house for Overboard.
Yes.
Be like, kids, we're doing Overboard starring Kurt Russell, which I haven't seen, but have heard described to me in thorough detail. We're gonna go check out some sites from it.
All right, an update on UW legend Nate Robinson via my ESPN colleague and fellow Sonics fan Baxter Holmes, who reported in a feature earlier this week that thousands of people offered kidneys to Robinson through a UW form that they promoted at the spring game and online. Now Robinson needs to undergo a colonoscopy in November and be evaluated to determine if he's healthy enough to receive a kidney before UW doctors can determine whether any of those donors is a match. So certainly hoping for the best there. And lastly, this week, we're remembering Monty Kiffin, who died last Thursday at age 84. The Seahawks tie here is that longtime Seahawks coach Pete Carroll worked under Kiffin in 1977 at Arkansas when Kiffin was DC, served as his defensive coordinator at North Carolina State from 1980 to 82. They also then worked together for the Vikings from 86 to 89, and Kiffin followed Carroll to the Jets when Carroll became their defensive coordinator in 1990. And Carroll wrote extensively in his book Win Forever about Kiffin's important influence on his defensive philosophy. Obviously one that then became extremely influential league-wide is the Tampa 2, based on his long tenure as the defensive coordinator for the Buccaneers.
That's awesome. I mean, I love the cycle of nepotism. How
I don't think
it's like Pete Carroll works under Monty Kiffin, and then Lane Kiffin works under Pete Carroll, and who knows, there could be another Carroll who's going to work under Lane Kiffin.
It is yet no, Nate and Brennan have not worked under Lane Kiffin to my knowledge. Well, we do not have a stop in our search for Seattle's best cookie this week, but rest assured, at least one next week. We're going to effort multiple cookies.
Wow.
Although I guess we no longer have a specific end date for this cookie search, but Still would probably be something we should get wrapped up before football season gets going in earnest.
Multiple cookies.
Yes.
I love to hear it.
I did not compete hard enough to
we-
get any cookies in Las Vegas this week. I will
We
say
were
that.
borderline. We were getting into. We've only done one cookie in like the last month. I know that you want to celebrate the Peltoncast MVP for the year, failed searches, but we were getting into failed search territory or abandoned searches. That
Only
will not happen though.
Only one Seattle cookie. We did talk about Leven Bakery.
There we go. Where are we going to hit this next week?
I think we need to finally make the effort to get to Cookies with Tiffany.
Okay.
Which has been on the list for a long period of time. We've talked about Seawolf, where I went to, but they didn't have their signature chocolate chip. And then this one came up on the Discord last week. Saint Bread apparently has not only a chocolate chip, but also a gochujang cookie, which is very
Where's
intriguing.
Saint Bread? That is a saint I would pray to, by the way.
As long as it's wet. Pull back. I believe that is in the Portage Bay area. Saint Bread.
What is the Portage Bay area?
It's
Is there
like,
an actual place, Portage Bay?
Yeah.
Wow.
They didn't just no, there's some podcast geography for you. I mean, I don't know if I want to like be too confident, like drawing Portage Bay on the map, but as I understand it, it's right near the Montlake cut in near the UW camp.
Near-ish where the like U Village Portage Bay.
U Village Portage Bay.
Or not
U
U Village,
District.
U District. My
Yeah,
God.
people had some comments about you referring to the taco
sorry.
time.
I did a fucking I did a map about this. It is literally like the I-5 is the divider. It is like a 2-minute walk. It is not technically the U District, but if you're gonna come here and you're gonna tell me that Dick's Drive-In is not in the U District, you can go straight to hell, good sir. That Dick's is technically speaking not in the U District, but Wallingford is basically the U District. I'm not concerned with technicalities. When you lived in Wallingford, people were like, "Oh, do you live in the U District?" Were you like, "No, I live in Wallingford"?
I don't recall anyone specifically asking me. I also don't recall it at all because it was 20 years ago, literally.
We need to go back in time and figure out how you would have answered that question. But it is still the U District. Whether it is technically the U District or not, that taco time
then why
was
would
in
you,
the U District.
Then why have the term U District at all?
So you would go like halfway through I-5 and be like, "Ooh, I'm in the U District. I'm not in the U District. This is absurd."
Yes, actually, that's like the equivalent of the four corners. If you stand directly in the middle between the north and south lanes of I-5, you're like, I'm both in Wallingford and in the U District.
There are.
Wait, are you saying we need to coin a free large style term for the area that's at the boundary of Wallingford and the U District?
The Wall District? Like, there's just a reality that there are degrees to this. It's not like there are gradations. It's not like it's one way or another. Things ease into each other. So some places, yea, though it technically may be Wallingford, it is still the U District. But if you get further into Wallingford, that's Wallingford.
So Portage Bay is the area that 520 crosses between the Montlake Cut and then basically the Ship Canal Bridge. Does that make sense to you?
Kind of. I'm literally trying to find Portage. There's just a lot of things called Portage Bay.
I mean, if you just search for Portage Bay, it did pop up for me.
I need like on Google Maps, like red dashed outline of what it is. Anyway, I was gonna freaking make a map of a pin of where the taco time location is and where the U District ends, and I'm like, this is the same fucking thing. They're the same picture.
I don't
Words
dispute
do
that
not have meanings.
I don't dispute that it's it's near the U District. It's very close to the U District, but it is not in fact in.
But you're gonna tell me, culturally speaking, that the Dick's Drive-In is not in the U District? Because that would be an absurd thing to argue.
I mean, the Dick's is even closer to the U District, as you note. I would still say the taco time, where is it located relative to the Wallingford sign that is on the QFC? which used to be
Uh,
a locally owned uh, grocery.
the QFC is
QFC
like
is on
like
Wallingford Avenue.
it's like
And
one block down the street. It's like one block west of the Taco Time.
so I'm
And
telling you, if you're like
the,
right next to a sign that says Wallingford, you're
that's
probably in
that's
Wallingford.
that's maybe that's the dividing line.
I know it isn't. We've already gone over where the dividing line is.
Halfway through.
We did that Taco Time already close?
July 15th. Rip.
Wow. Yeah, it's already off of Google Maps. I can't even can't even pinpoint it anymore. I'm gonna have to search for Chipotle.
In fact, the former Taco Time location, it's like almost equidistant between Dick's and QFC.
Here's the Fainting Goat Gelato's Wallingford location, right by it. Wallingford Studios, right by it.
Do I accept that it is technically speaking Wallingford, but like calling it the U District is not a like ho. It's not like you where you called Camino Island part of the fucking San Juans. Like literally, it's not even.
Not even
Anyway,
what? Not even
is
an
Camino
island?
Island an island?
It is technically an island, yes, even though you can drive to it. That's why it's
There's
called
just a,
Camino Island.
there's a bridge to it.
Yes, I believe it is like located very near the shore.
Oh yeah. I mean, between Stanwood, it is like a short bridge, but it's nowhere near the. Like
Yes.
it's not even close to the San Juans. That is a Peltoncast geography.
I agree. I take full responsibility for that one.
Also mentioning that, not mentioning the Barefoot Bandit.
The Barefoot Bandit?
That's where he hung out.
Huh?
It was in the Camino Island area.
I did not know this. It's
I
news
don't
to
think
me.
I don't think that's actually the 425, but I will not shout to the 425.
It would have been a perfect way to put this all together, but alas, they are 360. You're correct. All right. Well,
We shouted to the Barefoot Bandit months ago.
yes. We do also have another food update this week. We talked last week about the potential bankruptcy of Mod Pizza. That was avoided when the chain was sold to Elite Restaurant Group, which has purchased several restaurant chains out of bankruptcy, most notably Patsy's Pizza, which serves deep dish and had a location in Ballard until March. Seems unlikely there will be any sort of merger or overlap between the two because Patsy's serves a very different style than Mod, but we will see what this means for the
I think
future of Mod
the
Pizza.
merger that we might see is you said they had a location until March and then they closed.
Yes.
I
I mean,
merger
I
that
don't.
we might see is some of these mod pizzas might go away.
Some of them will. That's already been announced. One of the things I did see in reading some of these stories about this is it does not seem like Elite Restaurant Group has necessarily closed that many locations of the chains that they've purchased, at least not right away. So it's not, a
Never
case
heard
of like
Patsy's Pizza.
I've been there. It's not a case of them I went there, not I've been there because it doesn't exist anymore. It's not a case, I don't think, of them like stripping it down for assets, that sort of thing. Uh, there probably will be some degree of retrenchment, but I don't think it's going to be dramatic necessarily.
Do you have any Vegas food updates?
Oh, was delightful eating the entire time through. Uh, let's see, I got to double check the name of the restaurant that we went to on Saturday night. That was new to me, which it might have been my best meal, I would say, of the weekend.
Really? Okay. Because I was gonna say I feel like you tend to hit the old favorites quite a bit.
Yes.
And I'm excited to hear that there's a new location to talk about in here.
So this is a pop-up, Softa 1964 by Alon Shaya, the New Orleans chef.
Softa 1964 is the
Yeah.
name.
It's a pop-up at the Wynn. I forget what the name of the restaurant is for breakfast and lunch. I believe Jardine. Yeah, and it's considerably pricey. That was the most expensive meal I ate this weekend by a wide range. But pretty much everything we had there, I think, was delicious. Let me see if I can find the menu and go over what some of the highlights were.
To talk about how expensive it was, Jan style. That's what we should. That's what we should have Jan on for.
Oh, let us please not have Jan on for that.
To talk about the price of food items.
I will say the watermelon melon and feta, I picked that and it went half eaten, so that was not a strong recommendation for it. Although we didn't have enough time between the small plates and the large plates, I didn't think there was a red crab tagine that was incredible, and then the pomegranate braised lamb shake. I was disappointed that I was so full by that point that I could not eat more of it,
I hate that.
and that I was that you weren't there.
No, that it's that experience when you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
this is so good, but I'm too full to eat this.
I would say in hindsight that the second pita that I had with the salatine platter of like various dips and crudité, I would say that in hindsight was regrettable. I went too hard there and didn't save enough room. Uh, Sunday went to best friend, just outstanding. Like everyone you mentioned best friend to, like there were other people I talked to who ran it back to back nights
Wow. Okay.
the way that I did last year in Vegas. And then Monday, my final dinner of the week was at Lotus of Siam. Great as always. I know you didn't love it as much as I do, but
I think it's fine. Best friend has become like kind of the new staple though.
I would
Like
agree.
that's the new fixture. Like
I mean,
not Major Domo, right?
I did in fact do Momofuku.
There's no Major Domo, it's just Momofuku in Vegas, right?
Correct. The Major Domo closed. I only got to go there once.
And I do think
We
Best
had the
Friend has kind
duck.
of taken over.
We had the duck with three of us at Momofuku, which is a lot of duck, but just terrific.
Were any of those three Nate Duncan?
Yes.
Were
Yes, of course. He was part of
more than one of
he was
one
part
of those
of
three Nate Duncan.
he ate like more than one of those three. He I joined him at both Momofuku and Safta. And then Tuesday for lunch with friend of the pod, David Locke, the aforementioned, where the story came up. Uh, we went to Shang Artisan Noodle, which you'll recall that we went to in 2019 when we were in Vegas around Summer League and like really enjoyed their hand pulled and knife shaved noodles. But somehow I just had never gone back in the intervening 5 years. It's still quite delicious.
I remember thinking that was excellent.
Yep.
You had me at Noodle.
I did have you there. It's true.
I went to a place in Seattle in Beacon Hill this weekend called Magnolia, which I think is relatively new. And I think it was maybe up there with the best pho that I've ever had in Seattle.
Really?
It was
Search
literally
for Seattle's best pho?
there was, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but there was an AI country song that was made about the weekend after, and about how much the drummer hates his SBD XS Pro and the Roland Corporation. But there was a parody song that was made after, and it was specifically noted how phenomenal the pho was in the AI country song. That's a mark of great food.
Okay. Wait, what's the name of this again?
Magnolia pho.
So you're saying it's in Beacon Hill?
Yeah.
Are we getting into Peltoncast geography again? It's right next to Franklin.
I just read it as Beacon Hill.
Yeah, I would.
Located
I
in
mean,
Seattle's Beacon Hill neighborhood, Magnolia Pho's menu features.
I'm confused. Are these different locations?
No, I don't
Or-
know. That's where it is right next to Franklin, though.
Okay. That would be Mount Baker by the map.
I feel like we're getting too granular about this.
I'm just saying. I would not describe that as Beacon Hill for sure.
Fine, whatever. I Google Maps it. Sorry, in the Mount Baker area. It doesn't change the fact that the pho was good.
Okay, well, I look
Jesus
forward to trying their
fucking
pho.
Christ.
You should have made a pho pun there. It was regrettable. Right down the street from one of the pho back locations. So a real pho district.
It is. There you go. I looked at the map of Beacon Hill, which is extraordinarily large. And in the extraordinarily large map does not include the Magnolia Pub, but like literally a similar situation is like it ends at MLK in this little corner. And there's like a little offshoot of MLK that the Magnolia Fuzz on and does not is not part of Beacon Hill. Like, I mean, to even argue that it isn't is like being too concerned with the. It's probably like a 0-second walk between Magnolia Pha and what would technically speaking be Beacon Hill.
I don't know. I think at that point it's bounded by the Rainier and not the MLK, but we are really splitting hairs now.
Rainier and MLK meet each other, right? At Franklin High School. And it's Magnolia Pha is just where MLK carries on instead of it moves. And so the road splits MLK and Rainier. And on the left side, that's still technically Beacon Hill. Middle of the road over, because we have to be technical about this. And to the right side is Magnolia Pha. This is not Peltoncast geography. Peltoncast geography is being off by like 1,000 miles about something.
Like thinking that Canada is north of the US of Seattle.
Yes. North of Seattle.
All right. Well, one of the other things that happened in Vegas was that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver spoke to reporters after the league's Board of Governors meetings where they voted on the new television deals. That was, of course, one step in the process towards, or the last key step in the process preceding expansion. Here was his answer when asked about expansion. As I said earlier, we're not quite done with our media deals yet, alluding there presumably to the 5-day matching period that Warner Discovery believes it has on these deals. But once we are, we will turn to consideration around expansion. I will say it's a bit more complicated than is suggested sometimes, because just think of the new media deals, for example. Once they're completed, when you bring in new partners, you're diluting those payments, of course, to teams. Sometimes it seems as if we're printing money when we expand. Actually, it's no different than selling equity in any business. I think there needs to be a fair amount of modeling at the league office, working with existing owners and really thinking through the long-term prospects. Again, not just economically, but also for potential of dilution of talent. Having said that, I think we will engage this fall in earnest in the process of making those determinations. Should we expand? If we were to expand, how many teams should we expand? And what markets should we be looking at? So the only possible conclusion here is the NBA might add 4 teams.
Yeah. Any number between 1 and 1 million teams.
0 and 1 million.
It's just reading these quotes. I'm like, look, this is what you're talking about. It's basically like talking in legalese as if these things haven't already been discussed. And they're like, you have to consider. I do agree with him that it is like selling equity into a business. I agree with that aspect of it. But beyond that, the idea that they would go to these TV partners and be like, you know what? We're thinking of adding 2 new teams. And they'd be like, what? Like,
I bet that never came up once with Amazon. No interest, no vested interest in that whatsoever.
They're like, look, we have to assess every single city in the entire world.
Shelbyville?
No idea.
Shelbyville gonna get a team?
Might want a team.
Well, but this does fall in line, I think, with what I said last week on the pod, that, like, if you were hoping that they were going to announce on Tuesday night, like, hey, we're expanding, we'll tell you the teams in the fall. Like, no, the process is going to be much slower than that and more drawn out.
I'm sure somebody thought that.
I mean, there were people who thought they were going to announce expansion at the first preseason game at Climate Pledge Arena, and
every big moment they were like, Bronny's drafted, let's announce expansion.
So
there's a person who has predicted that they will announce expansion for every single thing, and it's like, if you predict it enough, eventually they're going to announce expansion sometime.
I mean, first off, how many times have you boldly predicted the return of the Sonics, Fred?
Have I boldly predicted it year after year?
I may have boldly predicted it this year, though. I may have been wrong on that one.
Not so soon, my friend. I think you're going to be behind on that one. It's not going to get announced this year.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said I was wrong. Chris Daniels, in an interview with KJR that went viral. Chris Daniels of King 5. No, he's not at King 5 anymore. Where is he?
I mostly just reject this idea of going viral from this interview. Were
He's now
people making a lot of TikToks about it? Like, were they doing the Chris Daniels KJR dance?
I mean, you don't think that things can go viral on Twitter
No,
because
I'm sure they
TikTok is
can.
more viral?
Chris
Uh,
Daniels, basically the Hawk Tua girl.
Just wow, that's somehow the first reference to the Hawk Tua on this very podcast. He's now at Como News. Uh, Suggested that 2026-27 was the likely time the Sonics would return.
Chris Daniels suggested that.
Yes, I would continue to take the over on 2026-27, is in longer.
I was gonna say over under on years. So Chris Daniels he's boldly predicting that year, or however the conversation went. I didn't see it, didn't go that viral, but like he's predicting that you think it'll be at least a year later. It's most likely.
I think it is more likely than not that it would be after 2026.
Okay. Stuff is happening. Do you ever just think and ask yourself, do I even want there to be basketball in Seattle?
Yeah, I know, because the answer is so clearly yes.
Okay.
Many people told me how great it would be for me this weekend.
Did they really?
If the Sonics returned. Or at least agreed with me.
That it would be good? What if you're like, man, I'm
For
going to
me
have to work a
specifically.
lot harder? You're
I
just
hope
like, I've
not.
really been living the good life here for so many years, not having to like cover the Sonics beat. People, I love
I'm
the
not
idea
gonna
that
cover the Sonics beat.
all these people are telling you how good it's going to be for you.
I mean, they're not like informing me as if I'm unaware. They're just like, yeah, that's gonna be great for you. Yeah, it's a well-known thing. All right.
I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just like not having them for so long. I'm like, yeah, I'm excited about it, but like when they announce the team, I don't think I'm gonna be like moved or whatever.
Oh, I'm gonna be pretty moved. I mean, not as moved as the actual first game, but you know.
All it sounds like, not to be all Jan here, but all it sounds to me like is just a thing that I'm gonna be priced out of. Like even having a hockey team, I'm just like, it's fine.
Well, yeah, you're not didn't grow up a devoted fan. I don't have a Kraken logo off the practice facility sitting behind me. But I guess it's true. None of these people told me it was going to be great for you when the Sonics came back.
Still waiting. Your brother kind of looks like Leo Messi.
Your brother you do a podcast with? Yeah. It's going to be great for him. All right.
It'd be good for you. So funny.
With that, it's time for a mid-season version of your favorite segment.
Don't burn yourself. We got Mariners hot takes coming at ya.
The Eagles famously have no good songs. I told my family on the 5th of July. But sometimes magic can hit you, and even after a long slog of a career, making tons of fans and zero memorable art whatsoever, a former member of the Eagles named Don Henley somehow managed to make the best song of all time and the anthem for your Seattle Mariners, also known as the Boys of Summer. The Mariners have them right where they want them. These past 3 summers under Scott's service, right around this time period, when the temps go up, the Mariners' bats have started cooking. They roaded great Julys and August to a .590 winning percentage in 2021, .565 in 2022, and .590 again in 2023. Each of those seasons improving sometimes significantly on their win percentage from the first half. When the going gets hot, the Mariners get going. And in 2024, they could not be in a better place. Without a large deficit to make up, and for the first time in any of these seasons, a lead in the division. Now, I could see people may want to complain about limping toward the All-Star break, losing 3 of 4 to the Angels, and no Mariner participating in the All-Star game itself. But I've got a peaceful, easy feeling right now because you can't compete in the past, and the monster second half is coming. I can feel it. So buckle up, get a fan and some sunscreen, and let's enjoy this winning baseball over these next 6 weeks that will propel the Mariners to their first division win since 2001. October may find nobody on the road and nobody on the beach. But if Julio can put it together and they win the division, I can tell you my love for this team will still be strong, even after the boys of summer are gone.
Where did you come up? When did you like settle on the Boys of Summer as your theme? Also, why the Hotel California slander?
Because it sucks. The alternate for this was
I'm not necessarily disputing the artistic merits of Hotel California, but did you refer to it as no memorable music?
There's one
pretty
memorable thing that
memorable.
happened around Hotel California. It's called American Wedding by Frank Ocean that the Eagles famously blocked from existing. So
I mean, I'm not
my
going to dispute that was
my alternate for this was there's a port on a Western Bay.
bad. Oh wow.
And those lonely sailors are called the Seattle Mariners. Just
Unfortunately,
wait. I don't want to tip my hand. That's coming later in the year.
that's only for teams with Sandy Alderson as their GM.
Oh Lord. I settled on it when it was an amazing song. And as it came on, and I was telling my family that the Eagles famously have 0 good songs.
As you noted, the Mariners lost 3 in a row to the Angels to head into the All-Star break in dubious fashion, all by 1 run. They outscored the Angels by 8 runs in the series and went 1-3, which is truly an incredible accomplishment. Astros 1 game back right now is at the All-Star break. Fangraphs has the two just about even odds of winning the division with 47% for the Astros.
Oh, Peltoncast
46%
math.
for the Mariners.
47 is not the same as 46. That's not even. Stupid.
I mean,
Bitches hate nuance. It's like,
Texas and Houston aren't that far from Kansas City, but that doesn't mean that Kansas City is in the AL West. That's I think your equivalent here.
not even close. You'd be more like arguing that like geographically speaking, Texas isn't in the western half of the country or something.
Is Texas in the western half of the country?
I think some parts of it, but that's not what I don't want to get into this.
Yeah, that's probably true. The MLB draft was Sunday. The Mariners drafted a switch pitcher.
I know. I got this notification and I was like, thank God.
I mean,
For the content, I'm so happy about the switch pitcher.
like, look, the Mariners may be frustrating, but you can't say that they aren't often entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
They play a lot of 1-run games. They strike out way too much to be too exciting. But there was the chaos ball era. And now we're out here drafting switch pitchers.
It is maybe exciting that they spent an entire offseason going way out of their way to not try to strike out. And then they came back and managed to strike out even more the next year. You can't tell me that's not entertaining.
It's certainly something. Durangelo Sinja from Mississippi State with the number 15 pick. I was kind of shocked the Mariners had the 15th pick, although they were, I guess, ahead of some teams with. Were there teams with weaker records that made the playoffs in the NL? I think there must have been, right?
Also, the Mariners are famously a horrible franchise. So being surprised that they had the 15th pick, that's drafting late for the Mariners overall, when you're taking into account the last 20 years.
I mean, probably true, but I'm just saying the Mariners did not have the 15th worst record in baseball in 2023. So that kind of threw me. And then there were 2 teams, I believe the Yankees and Mets both had worse records, but were pushed back 10 picks in the draft because of the rules, because they something to do with
tampering,
competitive balance tax,
or they signed Garrett Cole or something. Like,
do
they do that? They push you back in the draft for like.
Don't ask me to explain the exact mechanics of how that works.
Whatever mechanism led to the Mariners drafting a switch pitcher was the right thing to have happened.
100%.
As the parent of an
aspiring
switch pitcher, I saw this and I was like, Luca, there's a future.
There is a path. The Mariners last season had the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th best record in baseball. So I stand by my statement here.
There we go.
Also last week, and a rumor with Bob Nightingale of USA Today reporting that the Mariners are the front runner to add second baseman slash outfielder Jazz Chisholm Jr. from the Marlins. An All-Star in 2022, Chisholm has one WAR thus far this season, playing primarily center field, but previously was primarily a second baseman in 2021 and 2022, and could replace Jorge Polanco there. Chisholm fits the Mariners' budget because he's making just $2.625 million this season, has 2 years of arbitration ahead before possible free agency in 2027.
Wow, the front runner for Jazz Chisholm.
Yeah.
I mean,
You missed this?
No, I didn't see. I literally saw nothing. I saw like none of these games. I really had no idea. I was so consumed by working over the weekend that and by working I mean standing around at a music festival and then sometimes sitting down at a music festival. But still, there wasn't a lot of time for talking about Durangelo Ciante or Jazz Chisholm. Given that Jazz Chisholm, his salary isn't that high, and that he does still have those arbitration years, it does feel like the prospect haul would be pretty significant.
One would think, yeah.
At the same time, just performance on the field, like, still has massive potential. Has not necessarily seen through that potential overall, especially in terms of value. Like, Jazz Chisholm's just so far in his career has been hair above like role player, something like that, right? He made an all-star game. That is.
But can I introduce you to the Seattle Mariners, the 2024 Seattle Mariners?
No, I'm not saying this is a bad trade. I think the thing that Jazz Chisholm brings with him is
I just think you're like setting
name
way too high a bar for what it means to actually like make good on your potential.
No, and I think this would probably be worth it, assuming that the prospect haul wasn't so massive. But like a player like Luis Castillo coming over, like Luis Castillo is one of the best pitchers in the league, and also fetched a large like prospect haul. But Jazz Chisholm, younger, his name is bigger than his performance on the field. He was the cover of MLB The Show last year.
Well, I guess I didn't realize that.
Like, Jazz Chisholm is one of the faces of the game, which also is an amazing thing for the Mariners to have. He seems fun to play. Like, he's a player who I would look forward to cheering for, which the Mariners don't have that many of those. So I think it could be awesome. I don't know if it's quite the difference. It's a very Mariners move, right? Because it's not exactly like pushing in the chips, trading for somebody like Jazz Chisholm. I would be more excited about Luis Robert than I would be about Jazz.
I don't think I would.
It positionally doesn't help them as much either.
Luis Robert or Jazz Chisholm?
Luis Robert doesn't help them positionally as well, because Jazz Chisholm being able to play second base, center field obviously not an issue, but like being able to play second base is much more helpful there. I think they're probably the same age. Chisholm and Robert are very, very close.
I think yes, although yeah, they're almost precisely the same age. Or no, I guess Chisholm is younger. He's about 6 months younger.
Yeah, but they're literally the same age. They are both 26. And wait, how many years does Luis Robert have before arbitration?
Well, he's already signed up
an
through an
extension.
arbitration.
And so I bet if you were to ask the Seattle Mariners, and if they were to tell you a preference between these two, I think many people would probably admit Luis Roberts is probably a better hitter than Jazz Chisholm is. But the Mariners they're terrified of that $15 million salary, the $20 million team option, and the next $20 million team option, which it is what it is. That's what Seattle Mariners baseball is. It's not taking those risks. And maybe the ask for somebody like Luis Robert as a power hitter is higher than the ask than the Marlins would have for Jazz Chisholm. We don't know those things. So I can't say that they're apples to apples, but I would probably on the field be more excited about somebody like Flagler or Luis Robert. At the same time, having a fun player on the Mariners would be amazing.
I'm just like, I'm probably too scared off of the idea of bringing someone to Seattle whose primary asset is their power.
I still don't get like I was a fan of the Mariners when Nelson Cruz was on the Mariners.
Zach Jabal made some compelling points about the fact that home runs are actually suppressed less at this point than batting average after the outfield was moved in. So therefore, my 2001 Seattle Mariners, while accurate for its time, may not be relevant to now. I'm just saying, it just I don't trust it. Do not trust it.
I mean, I would love to have Jazz. Any of the players, and hearing that the Mariners are the front runner for anybody, they're clearly still thinking of themselves. I was kind of thinking of this also, even despite the losing the last 3 to the Angels, like they gotta really kind of go for it this year. If the Mariners end up missing the playoffs by 2-3 games again, it's a failure of a season for the Mariners.
I mean, yes, I still don't know that necessarily means they need to go for it this season, but as you pointed out, trading for a guy who has 2 additional years of team control, is age 26, is not a win just this season move.
There's for players in that territory that Jazz Chisholm is in, he could all of a sudden become an MVP candidate in a couple of years. He's in the territory that he's entering his prime. I'm not going to say it's extraordinarily likely, but like there are a lot of windows for him, and the chances of him getting better over the next 3 years are probably quite high and under team control. So I'm for it. I don't see why ultimately they couldn't do both.
I mean, that's a lot of prospects. That's really stripping your minor leagues if you do that.
They have a window here. They have a window with Julio.
I mean,
windows don't last forever. Julio is very young.
If you're making the argument that they need to move now, the argument is the window is your healthy starting pitching. And even those guys, though those starters other than Castillo are all young, you can't count on having all of those guys healthy going forward. That would be the argument for making a win now, or like really being aggressive to win now. All right, let's get into the roundup, which is basically all soccer this week. No Kraken news. Seattle Sounders, as we noted earlier, 2 more wins to push it to 5 in a row in MLS play. On Saturday, Pedro de la Vega made his first Sounders start as part of squad rotation. Jordan Morris and Albert Rusnak came on at halftime for de la Vega and Danny Musovski, and Morris netted the game's only goal in the 63rd minute. Pretty even in terms of expected goals, 0.9 for the Sounders to 0.8 for Austin, but still a strong road performance. On Wednesday night, just before we recorded, the Sounders got the opening goal via own goal by Tim Parker, remarkably his second for St. Louis against the Sounders. Sounders noted the defender is the all-time leading scorer for the Sounders against St. Louis City SC in that series. Sounders then doubled the lead just after halftime through John Bell, who opened his Sounders account by heading home a free kick and a strong start at center back. Stephen Fry moved into a tie for second in career MLS clean sheets with his 112th of his career.
Nice. Who's first in MLS clean sheets?
Nick Rimando by a million.
Okay.
I'd have to double check exactly how many Nick Rimando had, but
I remember watching him back in the day and him being frustrating.
It might be double anyone else. We saw him win MLS Cup.
Rockville, Maryland, home of Pink Shift. That's where John Bell's from.
Nice.
Yeah. If his parents moved to Bethesda, it'll be really eerie.
Suppose so.
FC Baltimore Christos.
The win lifted the Sounders over Idle Portland into 6th place in the West, 5th in points per match with a game in hand against Colorado, who's just ahead in the standings. Coming up on Saturday, the conclusion of this homestand, conclusion of this stretch of MLS play before we get into Leagues Cup play in the month of August, a rematch of last year's playoff loss versus LAFC on Saturday night. LAFC got a 2-1 win at BMO Stadium in the season opener for both teams. They played a 1-1 draw in a showdown of teams who entered tied for first in the West against Real Salt Lake Wednesday night. LA Galaxy actually with a win topped both of them. Two of the top four scorers entering play Wednesday in MLS and Denis Bouanga and June MLS Player of the Month Mateusz Bogusz, but the offense not quite as potent overall this season as it's been in years past. Seattle Reign FC, after getting a couple of weeks off in the lead up to the Olympics, open the very first game of the inaugural NWSL Times X Liga MX Femenil Summer Cup on Friday, hosting Utah. Their group also includes the Portland Thorns and Tijuana. The group winner will advance to the semifinals August 6th in Kansas City. The final of the Summer Cup, take this up with Peltoncast seasons, won't be played until October 25th after players are well after players are back from the Olympics. All right, Seattle Storm headed into the Olympic break on a 3-game winning streak. Last Friday, they beat Minnesota, which was without star Nafisa Collier for the first time after an 0-3 start to the season series. Still one of the more impressive performances of the year for the Storm as they just dominated the Lynx. Looked really good offensively, really strong, really balanced. Then wrapped things up with wins over lottery bound or in lottery position currently Atlanta, which has lost, I think, 7, maybe 8 in a row now. And then at LA after the conclusion of their 9-game homestand, in which the Storm went 7-2. Played another kids game Tuesday against the Sparks and got the win there to go into the Olympic break in style. They're tied for third right now with Minnesota. Las Vegas, which lost at home to the Chicago Sky on Tuesday night in a bit of a surprise, a half game back. Storm 4 games up on Phoenix in 6th place.
So to get home court in the playoffs, do they need to be ahead of Minnesota? They can fall behind Vegas, right?
Yes, they have to be. There's 5 teams for 4 spots, so they can fall behind one of them, those teams, and it's just fine.
So it is New York, Vegas,
New York,
Storm,
Connecticut,
and Connecticut is the other. That's the wild card team.
I mean, they're second in the WNBA standings. They also made a trade on Wednesday, a rare midseason trade, adding Marina Mabry from the Chicago Sky that should strengthen their chances of finishing second. Why does that
not happen in the WNBA midseason trades?
So the WNBA has a hard salary cap, and unlike the NFL, where you also have a hard salary cap, their teams are generally at it and often over the cap when you factor in hardship contracts due to injured players. What's a little different this season is that several teams, including Chicago, have a lot of cap space. So it'll be interesting to see if we see more trades this summer. One of the things I mentioned in my trade grades that is relevant to the Storm is one thing Connecticut may have accomplished because they traded 2 for 1 in that trade and the Sky took back more salary, is that they now can offer Gabby Williams more money than any other team after the longtime Storm player, or I guess is a member of the Storm 25th anniversary team, Gabby Williams, based on her season plus 6 games in Seattle. But she is set to be a free agent after she plays for France in the Olympics, and several teams apparently interested lining up. We'll see. I don't know specifically about Connecticut, but it would make sense that if they could offer her more money, she went to UConn, that could be an attractive option for her. Storm very much still in the mix. Gabby Williams was at a game in Seattle earlier this season. So, certainly a consideration that she returns after starting for the Storm in 2022 when they reached the semifinals, and then coming back and playing a handful of games last season before a season-ending injury. Storm at the break, number 4 in WNBA in offensive rating, number 3 in defensive rating, but just 0.3 points per 100 possessions back of Minnesota for first. So, it's basically a 3-way tie for that. Defense has been very impressive. Ezzy Megbagor's Defensive Player of the Year season continuing apace. Mentioned that kind of 5 teams for 4 spots. The ESPN BPI simulations have the Storm getting home court 62% of the time. So before the teams head off to, or at least before the USA heads off to France for the Olympics, we've got the WNBA All-Star Game coming up this Saturday in Phoenix. Storm will have Jewel Lloyd on the USA team, Nneka Ogwumike on Team WNBA. Again, famously, Ezzy Megbagor not part of the All-Star Game. All right, not really any Husky news this week, so Mentioned there is a little Seahawks business to attend to when we discuss them at the top. Rookies reported to training camp on Wednesday. Vets are due next Tuesday ahead of the first full practice for the Seahawks next Wednesday. One player who definitely will not be there, didn't think was likely, but definitely now will not be there is Jamal Adams, who signed a 1-year minimum
Yes.
deal with the Titans last week. So an opportunity for Adams to rebuild his value. Kind of incredible when you consider that he signed the largest contract ever for a safety with the Seahawks and goes from that to a minimum deal after obviously a number of injuries.
Yeah, I think the injuries, but also life comes at you fast.
Very true. Bill Barnwell did his annual skill position rankings of running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends earlier this week. Basically everything but quarterbacks as far as your offensive weapon. The Seahawks were number 4 in those rankings last year, dropped a little bit to number 8, but still a very strong group of wide
They
receivers.
were number 4. I mean, it's just the wide receivers, the value of wide receivers. It's running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, but it's basically a wide receiver ranking.
A lot of it, yeah, unless there's an elite, super elite tight end.
Because I mean, I guess the Seahawks have like you'd consider them to be good running backs, but like it's about
That's how
the wide
they-
receivers.
That's how they're considered.
I doubt he's giving much consideration to it. So,
Tight
did
end
he
room-
rank them by group? Is there a ranking specifically for wide receivers?
No, it's just aggregated across all of them.
Who is ahead of them in these rankings?
All right, let me go pull that back up. Oh, we did have, I didn't see this, that we have the top 10 wide receiver rankings up as well today.
But individual players
Yes.
or not teams. Okay.
Let's see if DK Metcalf was mentioned. He was atop the also receiving votes, which would put him 19th.
Not 11th? Okay. You said it was
No.
the top 10 wide receivers.
There's 10 plus honorable mentions and then also receiving votes.
Oh, okay. Got it.
I've not seen a lot of, perhaps there have been some Seahawks in there. I cannot say that I have seen them. We want to roll through those, but that's definitely going to be a theme is the Seahawks are probably not going to be rated very highly in a lot of things this season.
I mean, the 8th in basically skill position players is not bad.
No, it's quite good.
I feel like that's rated relatively highly. Just the factor is there's not one player, like if you were to ask me who the Seahawks quote unquote best receiver is, I don't know if I would I mean, it is DK, but it's not an immediate answer.
At this point, it's DK. Last year, I think there was a much stronger case for
Lockett.
Tyler Lockett, but but
But also,
did show some age last year, and
if you
he's
were to
not
ask
getting
me
younger.
who will be the best receiver on the Seahawks this year, I'm not willing to not say it's, not going to be Jackson Smith and Jigba.
I mean, if that's how the Seahawks move up, yeah, if Jackson Smith and Jigba has a great season. Detroit is 7th. Chicago is 6th after they loaded up at wide receiver.
That's just Romadunze, baby.
Maybe a little Keenan Allen, and obviously DJ Moore is a holdover. Number 5, the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Number 4, the Houston Texans after they added Stephon Diggs.
And they wouldn't have been in the top 5 last year.
No, they were 32nd last year.
That's so. I mean, that just kind of shows how much we know preseason versus after that.
Right.
Stephon Diggs is a huge part of it, but even without him, they're still probably top 10, maybe.
3 Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
2 Philadelphia Eagles. And one guess who's number 1 in these rankings.
The Bengals.
No.
Wait, really?
No. It is interesting the Bengals are behind the Seahawks, but they are not the number 1 team. The Bengals were 2nd last year. They dropped to 11th this year. This is very troubling.
That I can't think of who it is.
Yeah. Kind of a notable team.
Oh, the Niners.
Yeah.
I was just
teams that-
considering my own personal perspectives about these teams. How the Bengals are behind the Seahawks? I thought I would end this being like, that's fair.
They did not have a particularly good season. Their wide receivers last year. Leonard Williams and Draymond Jones were
I
also
would
receiving
definitely
votes at
trade the
defensive
Seahawks
line.
receivers immediately for the Bengals receivers. I would not think twice about it.
Who's the Bengals tight end?
Who's the Seahawks tight end?
Noah Fant. Noah Fant's good. I don't like his per target numbers were very good last season. I will brook no Noah Fant slander on this or any other podcast. If someone tries to do it on the low post, I'm coming for them too.
I'm assuming it's Drew Sample as the tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I will accept no Drew Sample slander either. Thank you. No Drew Sample slander.
As a receiving tight end, yes. Charles Cross rated as an honorable mention at tackle.
Don't scoff at those 22 receptions for 163 yards.
Look, some of those came from Jake Browning. Husky to Husky.
People have been slandering the Huskies a lot this year, so.
Fair.
I mean, really, like,
So the Seahawks have not yet had a top 10 player at any position in Jeremy Fowler's rankings.
Your per play basis, yes, for Noah Fant. And I do like Noah Fant, but he also only had 261 yards last year. I don't think he's moving the needle. I think this is a wide receiver ranking.
I agree it's primarily
really good wide receivers, though. So
I agree it's primarily a wide receiver ranking. Fant had a little more competition for targets much of last year than and there were just more targets, period. This was something that Barnwell specifically mentioned in his intro, is the Seahawks being 32nd in plays run. Hopefully that will not be the case this year, because for a lot of his tenure, we enjoyed that Pete Carroll defense influenced by the late Monty Kiffin. It sure was on the field a lot the last few years. So, yeah, by this time next week, we'll be talking about Seahawks training camp.
Wow. I'm going to Cleveland, Ohio at the end of August.
Are you?
Well, I wonder if the Browns are going to be playing. Are they going to be playing a preseason game?
Not at the end of August anymore.
Well, it's like August 24th.
Oh, okay, maybe.
They are not, because the Cleveland Browns are in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, there you go.
Playing the Seahawks in preseason. I'm actually happy about it because I'm like, man, that would really fuck up traffic and stuff. Because the place I'm going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is like right.
Wow, one of your artists is getting inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Paul McCartney.
They just waived the 25-year waiting period.
But yeah, no, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is very close to whatever the field is that the Browns play at.
I believe at one point it was First Energy Field. That's the name that's sitting there in my head. But your mileage may vary as to
right now. I believe it is called Cleveland Browns Stadium.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
they made it generic Madden version.
Do you know what is also close to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and who is hosting a game?
I was going to say Jacobs Field, but I think that's also
Progressive Field. Your Cleveland Guardians. I could go see Stephen Kwan.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. But yeah, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is like right next door to the Brown Stadium. So
all of those are right together, right?
Yeah, they're pretty close.
Wait, Gund Arena. Wow, that's even more outdated.
Gund Arena.
Rocket Mortgage Field.
I'm gonna go see LeBron James.
I don't know if even he played at Gund Arena.
Brad Doherty, how about that?
I don't know if I'm not quite sure that he made it to Gund Arena necessarily, but
go check out Craig Elo.
I know Sean Kemp did.
Yeah, for sure.
But they're all like right next to each other, right?
I didn't see the basketball arena on the map. What is it called now?
Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, I want to say. Yeah.
I know about the Rocket Mortgage guy.
Love that. Those naming rights.
I mean, that's pretty much. Yeah, they're all very, very close to each other.
It opened in 1994. When did Brad Doherty play his last NBA game? I want to say it was 1993-94.
The Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse is right next door to Progressive Field. They're a little bit further away. Like the The
Yeah.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the stadium are like literally right next door to each other.
Yeah, Brad Doherty did not ever play there. I don't know if you caught this. So I was on the low post I was on the Hoop Collective on Monday. I was on both of them, but this happened on the Hoop Collective. I mentioned that a scout had
I
told
just mentioned all the other podcasts I'm on too.
a scout had compared Reed Shepard, the top player in my projections, to Mark Price. So I reiterated this on the podcast, and subsequently, Mark Price tweeted about how much Reed Shepard reminded him of himself.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
so there you go.
And we're not just assuming that they compared them because they're both white guys.
They are, but as I noted to friend of the pod, Damon, via text, there have been a lot of white point guards since Mark Price
That have not been compared to Mark Price.
that have not been compared, that Reed Shepard has not been compared to.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. There's other white
Like,
point guards that Reed
like
Shepard
still,
could have been.
it's still a large pool.
Look, you have to compare the white guy to another white guy.
I
But
concede that
but
part
it's
of it.
notable which white guy we're comparing Reed
Exactly.
Shepard to.
Because like
Got
some
it.
people have said Steve Nash, and it's like, no, I guess I get they're both good at shooting and can pass,
And
but
white.
and white, but no, Reed Shepard does not play remotely like Steve Nash.
The like ball handling and like floor generaling is not Reed Shepard's thing.
I mean, it's not his thing. It's just not in the way that it is for Steve Nash, who was like
Isn't
one of a
also
kind as a point guard.
yeah, won back-to-back MVPs. Is Reed Shepard more of a two guard than somebody like Steve Nash is?
I mean,
Like, is he
again,
better playing off
everybody
the
in
ball?
basketball history is more of a two guard than Steve. I guess not, because Steve Nash actually did play off the ball as a rookie for the Suns. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Not that Steve Nash, but then like your average player who's considered a point guard. Like, where do you see Reed Shepard slotting?
he's got some combo ability. Like you can play him and Fred VanVleet together this season. But that's what I think has been most impressive about, like, he didn't necessarily have the ball in his hands that much at Kentucky because he played with Rob Dillingham, but he has throughout summer league, and he's been getting where he wants on the court. I saw a friend of the pod Waz say that, he liked that Shepard never got sped up and was playing at his own speed, and I think that was correct.
What who's impressing so far in summer league?
Uh, Not Alex Sarr, who went 0 for 15 from the field on Wednesday night playing against Donovan Clingan and the Blazers, or on Tuesday
Well,
night.
he kept getting his shots up.
He was certainly aggressive. Uh, Bub Carrington, who was drafted with the pick the Blazers traded to Washington in the Denny Avdia deal, has been quite good, I would say, among the rookies. Terrence Shannon Jr. looked pretty good the first time I saw him.
How was Donovan Clingan?
He's been, as advertised defensively, it's been a little bit of a rough go offensively. I mean, he's obviously someone that's going to benefit from having better playmaking around him, but the idea that he's going to be a 3-point shooter does not seem to be taking right now. I didn't see it at all because I didn't catch any of his games, but Tristan da Silva, your namesake from Colorado, whose selection I panned by the Magic, is
Oh, you hated the pick.
number one in WARP per game among rookies. Entering
Hello.
tonight.
What about my boy Dalton Connect? Which white guy did you comp him to?
Doug McDermott. He had a really good game on Friday night in the Lakers Summer League opener. Did not play as nearly as well on Monday in their next game. I don't know if he played tonight. It was all in and out on that one. So I have no specific updates on tonight's Summer League action.
Played at Northern Colorado for a couple years, huh? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it wasn't even that good there the first year.
Well, children, if you stick with it, someday you could be Dalton Connect too.
Or you could be a switch pitcher and drafted by the Mariners in the first round.
Literally, that's what I say to my children.
It truly is. Yeah, Dalton Connect did not play on Wednesday night. And then if you're successful enough as a switch pitcher and join the Mariners, you too can buy a house in the 425.
There we go.
On that note,
Thanks for listening.
thanks.
Sorry I was late. Keelan was telling me in thorough detail every single thing that happened in the movie Overboard starring Kurt Russell. So if you want to know anything about anything that happens in the movie, I'm assuming you have not seen this movie, starring Overboard, Kurt Russell from 1987.
Wow, this is directed by Gary Marshall, huh?
Yeah, with Goldie Hawn right
Okay,
there.
I thought Goldie Hawn. Yeah, I do vaguely remember that. Okay. Catherine Hellman, always enjoyed her work.
Oh yeah, and the
Oh,
grandma from
yeah,
Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore
Never
Girls,
heard of
yeah.
her.
This is
It
a
was
fine
a
cast.
thorough recounting of this film.
Maybe the listener can post any questions in the Discord if they have.
You do not need to include this, but it was just literally, I'm like, okay, all right.